Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. Hashtag ODPHEE if you want to join in the conversation on social media. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to discuss. Let's waste no more time. Time to go right into the conversation because that's what we do here on the ODPHEE. Biggest news story of the week was the return of The Walking Dead. Now, it was the mid-season premiere of Season 9, a lot of speculation, and dare I say, one curveball thrown right off the gate.
Semi-curveball, I'd say more of a slurve for you baseball fanatics. One totally unexpected.
Break it down for us, Pad.
Well, the kind of not-so-surprising news that we got, I think it was either the day before or the day of, was that Denai Guerrera is indeed leaving the show at season's end.
Yes, this one... For me as a fan, I really cannot stand when they release this news that a major star is leaving a show right before a premiere. You know, I thought the way they did it on Arrow this week, which I actually talked on the Parlay Points blog, that when they announced that Echo Kellum, who was playing Mr. Terrific, is leaving the show.
Well, that was rumored. That wasn't confirmed, but officially announced before the show, was it? Because I know people were like, oh, it was speculated.
No, that was speculated that he was leaving at some point, but he was written off the show. And he is made a social media post saying that he was leaving the show. So I apologize if this is a spoiler for you if you're listening.
Right.
But how they did that I thought was very well done because you really don't want to take away too much from the story. And this was one of my biggest complaints from the beginning of Season 9 when they announced before Season 9 was going to air that Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick Grimes, was leaving the show.
Right, and the other one I can think of is the old, I'm forgetting the actor's name, but the older gentleman from Legends of Tomorrow. That was like right before last season's premiere. That they're like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, he's leaving.
Victor Garber?
Thank you. Well, yeah, right before last season premiered for Legends of Tomorrow, they're like, oh hey, by the way, Victor Garber's leaving the show at some point.
Yeah, when they do stuff like this, I don't think it adds to a story.
I'll say this isn't sports where, you know, you get an athlete in whatever sport it is saying, hey, this is going to be my last season. At the end of the season, I'm retiring, and they can get like a, you know, hero's farewell, you know, right off into the sunset. No, this is kind of an, depending on the show, this means one of two things. Either they're going to just go, hey, you know what, I'm done, you know, doing whatever I do on this show, be it a superhero, you know, medical show, whatever it is. Or in certain cases, well, that person's marked for dead.
Yeah, this is just a big distraction, and one I don't think The Walking Dead needed per se. And I'm not going to go into speculation about, like, you know, the timing. Is this meaning the whole show is going to end now? Because that was another rumor that was coming out that it was going to get canceled, but it has been renewed for Season 10.
Right. The only reason I can think of that they made this announcement before the episode aired was to possibly give Denai a little bit of comfort in knowing that any presser she goes to or any interview she goes to, she won't get bombarded with that question in 50 different ways of, hey, you coming back next season on Walking Dead? You coming back next season on Walking Dead?
Yeah, I know. It just for me, though, like I said, I hate how they did it. Like, I love how, like I already stated, I love how when Echo Kellum said he's leaving Arrow after the show, and then you kind of buy into, the story was more impactful for the viewer.
Right.
This is almost going to be like the countdown to, when is Michonne's last episode?
Right.
And I think that's going to really take away. I don't think that's a ratings driver. I think, if anything, that's going to turn away fans, because the one thing about The Walking Dead is when it's at its best, it's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen, even if you've read the books, because they've pulled curveballs out before where they've killed off major characters that you're like, wait a second, they're still in the books.
Right.
So going into this premiere, that was looming overhead. But overall, and we are going to be talking spoilers about the episode, Pad, what did you think?
I thought it was a great episode. You know, I'm finally glad that somebody from the show who was in charge of writing was listening to us and finally giving us a firm, it's been X number of, you know, months, days, years since this happened, giving us a firm date of how much time has passed, because yes, you can look at people and go, oh, they look older. Okay, that helps tell the passage of time, but unless you give me a firm number, it's kind of hard to say. We did get a firm number in how long time has passed, but I'm very interested to see where they go with things.
Yeah, I agree. I did love that finally somebody has listened to the ODPH Entertainment Edition and said, okay, we're going to give you a time frame intro, somewhat like how the CW does with their shows. Somewhat, I want to stress. Because we do know it's 6 years after, this is what's going on, and it just really caught up new fans to speed if you turned away from The Walking Dead or you're just jumping on now for whatever reason.
Right.
And as the show is progressing, obviously they're dealing with the effects of Jesus getting killed off by Beta from the Whisperers.
Right.
That there is a threat now that is attacking the group. They're kind of wrapping their heads around it and obviously killing off, I would say at this point, a major character in Jesus.
Yeah.
That this is now sending ripple effects throughout the cast of characters, I'm trying to say. And as they're going through, you're really seeing, okay, where everybody is kind of rallying around this loss as a focal point that, okay, there's a new threat. We all need to work together, kind of put our differences aside, and let's get going.
Well, and especially you think it's been 6 years since Rick Grimes, quote unquote, died. Presumably, there have been incidents and flare-ups in that amount of time, but nothing to the effect of, oh no, people have died, like major people have died, major figureheads in our little organization, our little community have died. So you could almost make the assumption that they've gotten a little complacent, and that ever since Rick, again, quote unquote, died, that Jesus is the first time in 6 years that they're having to deal with the death of a major figure in their community.
Yeah, this one was definitely having some ramifications on the group. And obviously, as they're trying to find answers, there was I would say a very good fight scene where Michonne, this is why we're going to definitely miss Michonne.
Yeah.
Takes over. They run into a group of Whisperers and actually capture one.
And the funniest thing was when somebody brought the proverbial knife to a gunfight, where they're coming at her with like a dagger or some nonsense, and she's got the katana.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro, but you're outmatched.
Absolutely. So as they capture Lydia, who is the daughter of Alpha in the storyline, this is where we're seeing how the absence of Rick and Carl on the show compared to the comics is now getting filled in by Daryl and Henry. And this is very interesting to see, and especially for Daryl, who has always been the loner, kind of had his own little thing going on.
Does what he has to, but yeah.
We're now kind of seeing a new layer to him, which I like seeing.
He's filling in the Rick role if you read the comics, but it's also with a kind of wrench thrown into it. He's not as even keeled as Rick is at these points. Rick is very much kind of mellow and type of thing at this point in the comics, whereas Daryl snap on you in an instant, and you don't know what he's going to do.
He's snapping, but it also seems like it's calculated snapping. That's the one thing for me, and I know that I'm going to use a weird comparison. This is like when Wolverine took over the X-Men.
Oh, okay.
For a little time period. This is where you have somebody that's not the clear-cut prototype leader of a group, is now leading.
Even if it's not officially.
Even if it's not official. But how he went in there and how he was intimidating Lydia to get information on this new group.
I'm not going to lie. The interrogation scene with him and Lydia was not totally uncomfortable, but it made my skin crawl a little bit.
Well, it just goes to show that this is where Daryl is without Rick to kind of reel him in.
Yeah.
And it's
the dog without the leash.
Exactly. And I thought it was brilliant in that aspect that we finally are seeing the real Daryl Dixon. Not that we haven't seen him throughout the past seasons, but he's always played off of Rick. Now there's no Rick.
Right.
Now there's no strings attached.
No.
It is really just how he's reacting to life as is in the zombie apocalypse. And I thought it was brilliant how it was done. And I will agree with you, Pat. It was a little bit unsettling at certain points.
Like, it wasn't like I'm going to change the channel, turn it up. But I was like, okay, how far are you going to go with this?
Yeah, and it was very interesting to see. And obviously, with Henry being involved, this is like Carl 2.0. I'm getting frustrated if he's going to go down the road, which I think he's going to. And what I mean by this is like when Carl used to get the group in trouble.
Right.
I mean, obviously, he was responsible for Dale's death.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
Yeah.
So as we're looking here,
we'll say there was a moment in one of the seasons where they were in the prison where he's like, oh, I'm mad and huffy and puffy, and wandered off and almost got killed.
Right. So this is one of those situations that with Henry obviously taking a sympathy side to Lydia, we don't know what's going to go on there. I don't know. I mean, I think that's going to kind of come into play down the road. And obviously, if you've read the comic, you know where the storyline is going to be heading in theory. Because obviously, we know that this is a totally different storyline.
Yep.
But as the episode is progressing, we see Daryl's evolution, and dare I say, we see Negan reborn.
Yes. Or is the comparison I saw online, and for you wrestling fans, Negan's face turn.
Yeah, this one was very interesting, and I have to admit, I am loving the dynamic between Negan and Judith.
Mm-hmm.
That this is just one that Negan, I don't want to say has somebody that, I don't want to say cares for him, because I don't think that's the right word.
No.
But I think for somebody that doesn't have a full grasp of what Negan's done, and actually is trying to see like a good side in him, I think is a very nice dynamic to the story.
Right.
And as you see when they have their moments together, I mean, the actors are absolutely crushing it. And just to kind of see them bounce off each other, with their lines. I mean, I thought that was like the telltale of the episode for me.
Oh, yeah. Judith is ice cold. And this episode firmly establishes it. When she lets Negan go and she says, if I see you again, I'll shoot you. And she doesn't say it in like a ha-ha, teasing, funny voice. She's deadpanning that. She's serious. And the next time she sees him, she whips out the revolver and shoots him.
Yeah, shoots him while he's riding his bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the wilder scenes, but I think it just adds a certain dynamic because if, and I stress this, if Negan is getting redeemed, which, let's be honest, I can't see how.
Right.
But not to say it can't happen.
I'd be real interested to see it happen.
Yeah, this is one that I think the dynamic there is going to just, if anybody is going to be able to pull something out, I think it's just him working and bouncing off Judith, that he actually sees he has a friend. As weird as that might sound.
Right. Well, and the thing of it is Negan has a very interesting view of the world as is. It's not what a lot of people view as the world, where he does what he has to do. People have heard of the phrase, shoot first, ask questions later. Negan's a shoot first and I won't bother asking questions type. Judith has grown up in the world. She's very interesting in the show. She's the first major character we've had in the show who's grown up in this world not knowing what it was like.
Yeah.
Where you think about it, the Michonnes and the Carols and the Daryls and and Ezekiel's and Jesus's and what have you all want to get the world back to where it was before. And let's be real, that's not going to happen.
No.
If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now, or we wouldn't have a show. Judith doesn't know what the world was like before this, so all she's known is the world was zombies, and that's kind of how Negan sees the world is, okay, the world's not coming back. It is what it is. We got to make the best with what we have.
And just to kind of see his journey, because he finally leaves Alexandria, or dare I say escapes.
Yeah, I mean, he escapes, and Judith catches him, but again, he talks his way out of keeping him, and he leaves.
Yeah, and as he's wandering the world now, because let's face it, he's been behind bars for 6 years.
6.5 years, yeah, something like that.
So as he's going through, and Pat, let me ask you this. When he pulled up to that kind of open field where he was drinking the bad water, did you recognize that?
No.
You want to know what it was?
Sure.
That is where he killed Glenn.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even put two and two together. I mean, different lighting and all that, but wow.
The same camera angle.
Wow.
And they actually confirmed this on Talking Dead.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was the same place where he originally, they show him on his knees drinking water, and they just kind of flipped it back that now, before he was the one standing over everybody, and he had everybody in a circle and all that.
Yeah.
His same camera shot, same everything, which I thought was brilliant by the Walking Dead producers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which, I mean, completely mind-blowing, but because I kept thinking, why is this field so symbolic?
Right,
why are they spending so much time here? Sure enough, that's where he killed Glenn and Abraham.
Wow.
And to see that he winds up back at Sanctuary and finds out that, well, you can't always go home again.
Right.
That obviously it's been overrun by zombies, and he's really finding that he has nobody around him.
Yep.
And he's not handling that.
Well, he had people that were still semi-loyal to him, but before the mid-season break, they all got killed.
Yeah. And it was very interesting to see. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan has just been outstanding in this role.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously trying to, reinvent the character at this stage. And almost make him sympathetic and endearing to the audience. Almost.
Yeah.
Almost, I want to stress that word, almost. Is just, a true play on how well the actor is filling the role.
Right.
Because really, is there any redeeming in Negan?
Well, we'll see.
We're going to find out.
I mean, to me, this is why I want to see them redeem Negan, not for any personal reasons, just because he's the most twisted, vile character that I can think of. This is almost like, for Harry Potter fans, this is almost taking Dolores Umbridge and making me like Dolores Umbridge. For those who don't know, Dolores Umbridge is more hated than the series villain in Harry Potter. If you ask any Harry Potter fan, this is like if J.K. Rowling wrote something and made Dolores Umbridge lovable. I want to see this happen.
Yeah, this is going to be a true test if they can pull it off. And without going too spoilery with the comic, I mean, obviously Negan is going to play a very important role with the Whispers.
And then this is going to be amplified even more so now that there's no Rick in the story.
Yeah, so see how this plays off. That's going to be really interesting to tell. And I mean, just to kind of bring it back and fold, he does wind up going back to Alexandria, which I mean, obviously he's escaped, so I don't know how that's going to play out next episode.
Not well.
I can't imagine not well, and especially with the mood that Daryl's in.
I'll say, because they don't know, other than Judith, they don't know he's out, do they?
No.
Right, so he's going to walk in the front door, hey, guys, and you're going to get a stare from Michonne, and somebody's going to go, how the did you get out?
Yeah. And I mean, the only other takeaways from the episode, too, to wrap it up very quickly, Rosita is now pregnant, which, was that like a little forced? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around it that, there's like now a backstory with other characters. And I mean, granted, it's been 6 years and there's stories with that. And I know it's a little play off what happens in the comics.
I mean, it makes sense given it's been 6 years. It makes more sense to have, even if it's a pregnancy or something minor, and obviously pregnancy is not a minor thing, but to have had something happen in 6 years and it's not just, oh, hey, yeah, it's been 6 years and I've been doing the same thing every single day.
Right. But it's just also kind of, I don't know, like I kind of thought how it was sprung upon was just a little forced.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe just how, because now it's like, You're playing who's the father of the baby, and I don't know if
they call Maury still alive,
right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if you need that in the Walking Dead universe. I don't know. Me, it just didn't resonate with. But definitely let me know on social media. Hit it up on hashtag ODPHE. But we've closed out the episode with Alden and Luke, who are going through the woods. Dare I say, they run into bad luck in the worst way possible. The two-man band might be over and done with before they take off.
Man, I was hoping that band would really take off.
Absolutely, but as it ends with the episode, they run into Alpha and the rest of the Whisperers, who I thought made a dramatic entrance, and that's what you want to do to establish your antagonist for the next season. And overall, I thought the episode was very well. Definitely had some standout moments, especially with Negan and Judith.
Yeah.
And where they go from here is going to be interesting because now it's a clean slate playing field. The only thing now that's going to be hovering is when Michonne is leaving and how she is leaving the show.
Well, and for comic book readers, when the festival finally happens.
So that's going to get very, very interesting. But overall, the episode was a strong comeback for The Walking Dead. I thought it was a very good one. Not the greatest episode, but I thought they did enough to really establish that time has passed, the Whisperers are a threat, and where we go from here remains to be seen. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHEE. What was your thoughts on this week's Walking Dead? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is George Gatton, and you are listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPHEE and PAD. We have to talk about the biggest day of the month.
Okay.
February 15th.
Okay.
Know what I said, 15th.
I would say it's not a couple years ago. Deadpool's not coming out.
No, Deadpool is not coming out. And granted, we are now in the time frame that Captain Marvel is going to be hitting the theaters in less than a month.
This is true.
No, February 15th is a huge day on the calendar. Why, you ask?
All the Valentine's candy will be half off.
Sure. If you pay attention to Valentine's Day, that's a big deal.
I like the candy.
The candy works. No, Pad. That is not the reason why. February 15th is a huge day for comic book programming.
Okay.
And let me break it down to you on this. Ironically, both of these shows are coming out the same day.
Okay.
First off, we have Doom Patrol coming out on the DC Universe. Episode 1 will be airing. This is now the second show that is rolling out in the DCUU. After Titans, they had their great introduction, episode 4 on Titans, which if you haven't seen and you have the DC Universe app, what are you waiting for? Get on that. That is arguably the best episode of the season of Titans, bar none. But now we're getting the live-action Doom Patrol. Now, are you familiar with Doom Patrol?
Not really.
Okay. I've always said they're the quirkier version of the X-Men, and I definitely stay to my word on that. If you haven't read Doom Patrol, it's an acquired read, in my opinion.
Sure.
It has a lot of the same similarities to the X-Men. their leader, Dr. Calder, who is going to be played by Timothy Dalton on this series.
Former James Bond.
Yes. He is, the wealthy leader of the team. He's in a wheelchair at some point.
Okay.
And he kind of has the Professor X vibe to him, just without any mental powers.
Well, so you mentioned wheelchair, and the leader of the group, and that was kind of my first thought was Professor X.
Yeah, that he's been shown in pictures of that. So,
Right.
So how that comes to be, obviously you find out as the show goes on. And then the team is definitely not your Cyclops, Jean Greys.
Sure.
Angels. Dare I say, the closest I could say to this is they definitely look the part of, not the normal heroes.
I want to say they're the group that, like, if you're a civilian and stuff's hitting the fan in the worst way possible, and these guys walk in and you're like, really? This is who you could send? Not the Justice League Avengers type?
Well, what's the strongest point of the Doom Patrol is they're in the DC universe. They're not the ones that are going to go after Darkseid. They're going to go, and they're in their own, like, kind of little space, and where they go in their kind of universe is really, different. And I like the difference in it. I like how they stand on their own.
Right.
Because you have a character like Robot Man, who is played by Brendan Fraser. That Brendan Fraser from Encino Man, The Mummy.
I'll say that casting announcement definitely threw me for a loop when I saw it come across the wire.
And his character, Robot Man, is arguably the Wolverine of the group, if we're going to reference the X-Men a lot. The mainstay of the team, no matter what different incarnations, there's always Robot Man is involved in some capacity.
Right.
And if you don't know who he is, he's the one that looks like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, so to speak.
Yes.
But he has a human brain inside him. It's it's comic book, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way you need to describe it. And then on this roster, they have Elastigirl, who they did show in the Titans episode, who is a little different. You really didn't see what her powers were, but she can definitely, I want to say, is like a Mr. Fantastic meets Giant Man, so to speak. Can stretch, can get big or small, depending on what comes with the story. And obviously, it just struggles with controlling the powers. That's like the big takeaway from there. Then you have Negative Man, who is kind of a little different to describe because he looks like almost like he's a mummy, so to speak, or a ghost that's wrapped up in bandages. And obviously his character he's absorbed a lot of like chemical radioactivity in him, and he can release, at least in the comics, like a shadow version of himself, almost like an unstoppable ghost, so to speak. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that it looks different. Like there's like this just demon that leaves his body, but it's not a demon. It's just this figure that just gravitates away from him. And they are introducing Crazy Jane into the roster from the team. So, and I don't know that much about the character. According to IGN, 64 personalities, each with a different power. So I think that's going to be kind of a little interesting dynamic to the group. But the biggest one that stood out for this team was they're adding Cyborg. Now, why is that a big deal, would you say?
I really have no idea.
Okay. Cyborg is associated more so with the Teen Titans and Justice League. Really has not had a history with the Doom Patrol. If anybody has a history with the Doom Patrol, it's Beast Boy. But they've already established Beast Boy with the Teen Titans, and that's where you really recognize him being on that member. So to see Cyborg getting added to the Doom Patrol, I don't know how that's going to go over. I'm very interested to see how that actually plays out.
So they're doing it for, I would assume, a very deliberate reason, and not just for, hey, this character in that show, so watch him in this show. It's got to be a very deliberate reason. It might not be a permanent thing. It might just be for this season type of thing, but we'll see.
It could be. I mean, the one thing that we don't really know per se is how far-reaching the DC universe is going to go. Are we going to see a Justice League on there? We really don't know, but the one thing I do applaud is they're actually doing a Doom Patrol series. Because when you talk about household names, and Pat, I mean, your prime example, you don't know who the Doom Patrol is.
So yeah, they're not exactly, if you told me to like list the top 5, top 10, heck, even top 15 superhero teams, probably wouldn't crack the list.
Right, but they are their own unique style. They're just a quirky team. I mean, that's the easiest way to describe it, but they work in their own space. Like, I think if you tried, like I said, having fight Darkseid or Lex Luthor. I don't think it would resonate that much with fans. I mean, they have their own unique, antagonists they go against and such. And I think when it's really paired off is like when Grant Morrison was writing the book in, I believe, 1989. He had his run. I mean, it's quirky. It's different. It is Well, essentially what you expect for a Grant Morrison book. It's just going to be a different take.
Right.
And I think that's where it stands out. And I think a lot of the series, from what I'm hearing from different sources, is going to be resonating a lot from that.
Okay.
So I'm really interested to see, because, I mean, the Doom Patrol has been around since the 60s.
Sure.
And obviously it's kind of had their high points and low points, I guess would be the easiest way to put it.
Sure, as is expected.
It definitely is, because for a team like that, you really have to have something that stands out. And I think, for them being on like a Grant Morrison book, and more recently they were written into the Young Animal line that was done by Gerard Way.
Okay.
In 2016, I believe.
Okay.
So when they're in that and they're kind of in their own space, and I think Grant Morrison's version of the team, even though it's been like almost 30 years after they were originally created,
Sure,
is like the defining version, because it's just so different that they are not your average superheroes. They're not going to be the ones taking on the biggest threats in the world, but they will be taking on threats, and just how they play off each other and where the dynamic goes, I think is going to be very interesting. And everything I've seen from the show has been looking amazing.
right.
I'm super excited for this show. And like I said, when I first heard they were doing it, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Casting has been spot on. Everybody they've gotten involved with the show, I think, is really going to jump. And I think is going to really hit. I think Brendan Fraser is going to steal the show as Robot Man.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, if you have not seen the Titans episode 4, you need to see it before Friday, because that's when it's going to start airing on the DC Universe. So, Pad, I also mentioned Gerard Way. Do you know who he is?
It was the lead singer for the band My Chemical Romance, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Why is this tying in? Obviously, he has the Doom Patrol tie-in.
Sure.
But he is also the co-creator of the Umbrella Academy.
Okay, I've heard of it. I didn't read it because when it was coming out, I didn't exactly have an income to buy said comics, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, him and Gabriel Ba created the Umbrella Academy 2007. It is almost like in the same vein of Doom Patrol, but it's different.
Sure.
It's very different in the sense that the storyline, and I'm going to try avoiding any real spoilers with this one, because if you haven't read it, I don't want to, like I said, I'm just going to give you bare bones about this.
Well, it's like, because if I'm not mistaken, it's coming out on Netflix.
Netflix Friday.
So, yeah, Netflix is putting it together. It'll be very close, if not, 100% faithful to the source material.
Right. And the first version, like we said, of the Umbrella Academy came out 2007. The storyline is basically there are 43 infants that are mysteriously born the day before nobody was pregnant. They now are born, 7 of which are adopted by a mysterious figure known as Sir Reginald Hargreaves. Hargreaves. And basically, he's trying to raise them to become a superhero team, but he is very, very demanding, and I think that's the nicest way I could put it. And dare I say, the team comes out worse for wear.
As to be expected, if you're being very demanding to the point of being a little uncomfortable, yeah.
Almost like emotionally scarring them.
Ugh.
Like, this is not going to be the happy-go-lucky team that just magically works together.
Sure.
They are not on the same page. There's a lot of different underlying stories going on with the characters. And obviously, there's something that happens that brings the 7 of them back together. And I mean, the 7 of them have different powers. One has super strength. The other has kind of a warping of reality type, vibe to them. One more, dare I say, is the one that's going to stand out most. Is there's one that can time travel, but he is stuck in his childhood.
Oh boy!
As he is going as time travel, and he doesn't have it figured out, so to speak. And you see, there's going to be a different set of characters and powers involved with this. This show is going to be a hit. I can't even get into how good the book is, because I will say, get down to your comic book shop, pick up the Umbrella Academy, Apocalypse Suite, I believe is the name of the book. That's the first volume. It is a different read. Like I said, Gerard Way and Gabriel Bay did this just incredible vision of, dare I say, just like, you think when powers, everything just works out perfectly, and it just doesn't. And just how somebody's trying to make the world better just does not happen and coincide on how it's envisioned to be. It's definitely going to be something different. And I think that's kind of the vibe that we're going with this segment, is with superheroes, they're usually pretty cut and dry.
Sure.
For the most ones that are major, familiar with the public, they're the pop culture icons, so to speak, the Supermans, the Spider-Men, so to speak. The Umbrella Academy and Doom Patrol are just so different. And I love that they're now getting some exposure. Because like I said, Umbrella Academy is a fantastic read. If you haven't picked it up, you need to get to your local comic book shop. I can't stress that enough. I'm not even going to get into the storyline, and that is the basic I'm going to give you of what to expect from this. Because the early reviews I've heard about this, it's fantastic. I've seen a couple trailers, there's some footage of it. It looks amazing. It looks very faithful to the comic. And that's what you want from this, because just in how great the story is. And like I said, the premise of it is just so left field.
Sure.
That just, magically the 43 infants are born out of nowhere with no real explanation. And obviously there's ones that have powers, and where it goes from there and just how it coincides. They now have to come back together to save the world. And how that whole storyline gets to going, it's truly a fantastic read. But to see it coming live on screen, it's going to be something to check out.
Sounds like it's going to be real dark.
It's going to be dark. And like I said, it's definitely not going to be one that I don't want to say it's going to be like your typical superhero storyline with Marvel. It's usually more lighthearted than not. And obviously with the DC EU, it's been in their darker days with just, how gritty and how just realist. I think this one is going to be kind of a nice balance in between, because there are moments where you're really going to kind of get involved with the characters and just how it all just works itself out and how the storyline goes, because you're not going to see a lot of things coming. I will say that. There is so many spoilers and surprises in this that I just don't even want to break it down.
Right.
That is how much I'm telling you need to check this show out. And especially it's going to be on Netflix. It's probably going to, like I said, going to cover the first book. And going from that, where they go from this, I mean, is this going to have multiple seasons? I don't know. I don't believe so. I mean, I know there's been a couple volumes of the book. And obviously if the show takes off, I think that's where it's going to really resonate with the audience. But for February 15th, this is going to be a huge day for comic book fans on TV. This is going to be something that if you're thinking, okay, it's going to be kind of a quiet time till the big Marvel movies start coming out, you're sadly mistaken. There is going to be so much going on with this, Pat. I'm telling you, if you're not into this, you should go down to your comic book shops, check out the books for Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy, and then get ready for Friday. As, like I said, February 15th is going to be known as a big day for comic book TV. I'm excited. Pat is going to definitely start checking the shows out. He'll start tweeting out his opinion of it. But most importantly, let us know what you think. What are you most excited to see this weekend? Umbrella Academy, Doom Patrol, both? We want to know. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHEE. Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Rob Kacharik from the band 607, Autopilot Off, and Walking Distance, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for another segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and we've talked about what's coming on Friday. We've got Doom Patrol on the DCU. We've got Umbrella Academy on Netflix. But first things first, it is Wednesday as we were recording. What comes out Wednesday, Pat?
Deadly Class.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct. On SyFy. If you haven't been watching, you got to start. I can't stress enough on how good this book has been. And we're talking about, independent comics because, like I said, DC had Doom Patrol, sure. Image has had The Walking Dead. Dark Horse Comics is actually the book company that did Umbrella Academy. And Image Comics, though, going back to it, is the one that does Deadly Class and has been such a faithful adaptation from book to screen. And obviously, as we said 2 episodes ago, we covered both because obviously with the Polar Vortex, our coverage of Deadly Class was kind of 2-in-1. Skipped last week, but we're coming back with this one. So we are going to be talking spoilers about last week's episode in 3, 2, 1. So as we go into it, they're kind of dealing with the ramifications of Shab's house party. Now, Pat, are you a big 80s movie fan?
Nah, not really. I like a couple of them, but I'm not big into the whole, I got to watch an 80s movie.
Okay, fair enough. But obviously with the storyline being centered in the 1980s, there's a lot of influence by films in there.
Sure.
And when the storyline gets going, obviously they're dealing with the ramifications of Shab's house party. And Master Lin takes certain characters and puts them in detention for the actions that happened there. So you obviously have Marcus, Chico, Saya, Petra, Victor are all in detention for the weekend, and how they do Deadly Class detention. Enough said. I mean, you can only imagine. But this is where it gets a little crazy because they go from being a typical, I want to say the easiest reference I could go with is like The Breakfast Club.
Okay.
Now, you know what that movie is.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And obviously it's like, where the 5 students are trapped in detention for the weekend and just, it's an iconic 80s movie.
Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of a little play off that. At least that's how I interpreted it. And obviously you see as they're going through escaping detention and just really getting themselves in more trouble than they should not be, because if you know anything about, Master Lin and how he runs King's Dominion, that is not the guy you want to go tick off. They get paid an unexpected visit by Saya's cousins, the Croaky. Now, they come busting through the door, and they are obviously looking to take Saya back, and they are killing everybody in 3 feet of them.
Sure. I mean, as one does.
Yes. And obviously to see where they're going with the episode, it quickly turns from The Breakfast Club into, I don't want to say a horror film, because I don't think that's the right version. It kind of almost seemed like, maybe a little touch of like the Friday the 13th where you have somebody chasing after people and they're running away.
Sure.
But I don't think that's a great enough analogy. But it's just all of a sudden the group is running for their lives because as they're seeing, Victor and Petra both get hurt because they're getting, slashed. And obviously Saya is trying to, escape. And she's not really laying down the cards of that is who her cousins are. We find that out later in the episode. And once we find that out, Chico is saying we should just turn her over to the cousins and, whatever, to try to save his own skin.
Well, would you really want to admit if those are your cousins? Like, if you're just there hanging out, doing whatever it is you're doing, and somebody comes busting in and, like you said, killing everything within 3 feet of them, you get the straight up, well, I wonder who that is. Would you really pipe up and go, oh, yeah, well, that's my cousins. Whoops.
The thing about it with Deadly Class, like, I was expecting it. I mean, it's just how cool it is, and just very nonchalant. I mean, she's taking this threat is very real. Saya is definitely stepping up and going, yeah, like, they're my cousins, and they're coming for me.
Right.
And doesn't really get into too much details, because they're running around in, like, ceramic masks, and you don't really know, like, who and what they're doing. They're just, like, literally going through the hallways of King's Dominion and taking out, like, everybody who they see, trying to get to Saya. And as they're trying to escape, I mean, let's say Chico is, like, trying to sacrifice everybody. And, I mean, obviously, he is the biggest heel, if we're going to use a wrestling term on the show.
Sure.
There is nobody worse than him right now. But he decides to, like, almost have, like, a heart, like, endearing moment, as we're saying, like, how Negan is trying to endear himself to, to Judith. He's almost having, like, a weird moment with Marcus, who are, like, I mean, obviously they're rivals right now. And he obviously, like, once you think, like, okay, maybe they're kind of making a breakthrough. No. He leaves him trapped to fight off the cousins as he escapes himself.
Oh, boy.
Which, at this time, his girlfriend Maria is trying to work with Willie about getting an ID to escape and run from him. Because that relationship is just getting more toxic as the day goes on. And is just really interesting to see how this all pans out. And they have one of the best fight scenes in a diner that you have seen in a while. And it's just something, like I say, it just kind of goes from where they take, like, just a simple idea of, like, the Breakfast Club, so to speak, and they just completely 180 it and just make it into the sheer awesomeness that is Deadly Class. It is just truly something to see. And as you see, Saya actually has to kill one of her own cousins to stop them. And then this time, Master Lin shows up.
Oh, boy.
Which you can imagine how this is going to go down.
Not well.
Dare I say, the fighting sequence in this, truly remarkable. Like I said, it was one of the better action sequences you'll see, especially, like I said, you're having, like, a literal weapons fight inside of a diner. I mean, just picture that and let it go, because it's the world of Deadly Class. And it's where it works. And you also see some backstories going on with Petra, too. You find out a little bit more of her background. You find out a little bit more of Billy's background and just, like, a tragic tale of it. And where they're going from here is going to be the infamous Vegas issue. Where, Pad, let me just put it this way. If they're escaping and they're going to Vegas, and these are adolescent kids, so to speak, how do you think this is going to end up?
Not good.
No, probably not. If you've read the book, the issue and the story arc when they go there, how this is going to resonate on screen, I cannot speak highly enough, like, of how excited I am for this. Like, this is a big TV week for me. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm amped up. And just to see where they're going to go from this, and they kind of did a little teetering to another 80s film too, where you saw there was, like, a little shout out to Risky Business, as you see Marcus's enemy from the fire is now chasing him and is now slowly finding his way to King's Dominion. You need to see the episode to get the true gist of it. I can't speak highly enough of it. It has just been the breakout show for me. Early 2019, I know. But if you're not watching Deadly Class, you got to get on board now. You got to get on absolutely ASAP. SyFy, 10 o'clock in the East, Wednesday nights. You can't beat it. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. I definitely want to know. Hit me up on the hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Johnny Moose from Excite Wrestling, and you're listening to the ODPH. I didn't mess it up. I thought I would. Right now, back to the guys.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and it's about time I unleash the Padawan. Hit us off with those one-shots.
Well, got a couple of things. First off, we got to talk about the major news that was dropped this past Monday, the 11th, where Marvel and Hulu are going to produce and put out 4 animated TV shows. Now, when I talk Marvel animated, that's a wide open category. Who could they do? Spider-Man, Avengers, Captain America? No. First off, they're going to do Howard the Duck, has been ordered to series. They're also going to do series with MODOK, Hitmonkey, and then Tigra and Dazzler. Now, the interesting thing with Howard the Duck is it's being produced by Kevin Smith. Yes, that Kevin Smith of Clerks and Mallrats fame. Tigra and Dazzler is being produced by Chelsea Handler. Yes, that Chelsea Handler. You look at MODOK, which is being produced by Patton Oswalt. And then Hitmonkey has writers Josh Gordon and Will Speck executive produce. Now, all of this is going to commemorate or lead into the animated special titled The Offenders, which quote, follows MODOK, Dazzler, Tigra, Hitmonkey, and Howard the Duck as they're all forced to team up in order to save the world in certain parts of the universe. Something tells me that's going to be real interesting and a lot of banter.
That name just kills me. I'm sorry. The Offenders.
Mm-hmm. OFFENDERS.
Amazing.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm very interested to see how they're going to do Hitmonkey.
Sure.
Out of all of them, like for me, that's the one that I think is going to be a very interesting show to check out because there's just we really don't know. He has a very big cult following,
like all of these do.
Yeah. So does MODOK. MODOK is going to be, I think, the breakout one of all of them.
I have to say that one interests me the most because Patton Oswalt is producing, and if it has Patton Oswalt type humor in it, with MODOK, that's going to be perfect.
It needs to. That one, I'm sold on. I'm sold on all 4 of them. I'm actually warming more to Howard the Duck. I'm not the biggest fan of Howard the Duck because I remember the movie, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
Sure.
But obviously, he's kind of seen a career resurgence in the Guardians of the Galaxy cameo he was in. So, I mean, we got to see. I mean, with Kevin Smith doing the work on it, too, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Oh, yeah. Moving on, some Breaking Bad news came out now. Breaking Bad, that show's over and done with. What could we be talking about? Better Call Saul? No. There's a Breaking Bad movie coming, and now you may be asking, Breaking Bad movie, what can possibly come of that? The series wrapped up so perfectly, and the prequel series has been equally phenomenal.
Better Call Saul.
Yes, Better Call Saul. Check it out. But this movie, not much is really quite known about it. It is being written and directed by series creator Vince Gilligan, and then it is being produced by Mark Johnson and Melissa Bernstein, who have both worked with Gilligan on Breaking Bad and the prequel series Better Call Saul. Not much is known about it. It is expected to be about Jesse Pinkman after Breaking Bad, which is... People are kind of going off of that theory because years ago when the series was ended and they had like a red carpet premiere or whatever it was, they asked, if you were to ever do a sequel series, what would it be about? And he said, and you can dig this up on video, he said, probably Jesse Pinkman afterwards. So that's kind of where people are going with it. And, Aaron Paul has been attached to it, so likely where it's going to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways they can go with it. I mean, obviously, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, it is one of the best shows they've ever done on TV, bar none.
Yep.
It ended perfectly. You could only argue one minor flaw, but you have to dig for it. Hit me up on social media. I'll get into it on there. But for them to do a sequel, and if they're going to do it about Jesse Pinkman, I'm glad that it's going to focus on him. They're not bringing back Bryan Cranston, as we know of thus far. Right. Because if you haven't seen the ending to Breaking Bad, I mean, obviously, you can't really bring back Bryan Cranston. So to see where they go with that, if it's going to be based on Aaron Paul and obviously Vince Gilligan's writing it,
Right, he's writing it and directing it.
Then I have full faith in it.
Oh, God, yeah.
Obviously, his track record with Better Call Saul has done enough that enough said. Like I don't even need to get into it. It's just that it's going to be good.
Right, now there's no expected release date for this yet, but there is some interesting release news for the movie. Of course, the movie will air on AMC, but reports are suggesting that Netflix will get the first crack at it before AMC will. Of course, Breaking Bad did have a very popular following on TV when it was airing, but it really wasn't until the season started getting added to Netflix, and then people started binging it through there, that it really grew into what it turned into right at the end. So something to keep an eye on.
Definitely.
Another interesting movie that got a trailer for that you might not have heard of is there is a biopic coming out May 10th titled Tolkien, of course, about writer J.R.R. Tolkien, who famously created the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth universe. Now, the film is starring Nicholas Hoult as the title character of J.R.R. Tolkien. Of course, you might know the name or know the face. He plays Beast in the younger X-Men universe. Of course, the film looks like it's going to cover all of Tolkien's kind of life, and if you know anything about Tolkien's life, it is a very wide-ranging life, and there's a lot that happens. Of course, he was born in modern day South Africa, but he grew up in the Birmingham portion of England, and his influences for writing the Lord of the Rings and all of Middle-earth can very much be seen in his life. Growing up in his childhood home can be seen as, where the hobbits live. And then, of course, he served during World War I, which can be kind of seen in his influences, when it comes to the villains in Lord of the Rings. So it's definitely something I'm going to be interested in to see, and I'm very excited to see.
Yeah, it looks interesting. I mean, obviously, with Lord of the Rings, there's a lot that goes on with it to kind of see the biopic from the guy from behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something different, definitely worth checking out. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm too focused on my TV this week, but if there's one thing I can recommend down at the comic book shops, the Mr. Miracle trade paperback is coming out. Mm-hmm. Now, if you haven't read it, Tom King and Mitch Gerads, I hope I've said that name right, they put together one of the coolest stories about a character that you really, like I say, we're talking about obscure characters on this week's episode, it seems like, between Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, Deadly Class to a certain degree. But with Mr. Miracle,
sure,
it definitely has a cult following, if we're going to talk about that too. Because obviously something from the New Gods universe, and I know that the movie has been still rumored to be going forward. Mr. Miracle, definitely, the world's greatest escape artist. Dare I say the universe's or greatest escape artist, not the universe world. But my point is, to see the take that Tom King did with Scott Free, it's such a really cool and different take on him.
Oh, yeah.
And like I say, I can't recommend the book enough, and it's something that's now finally out on trade paperback. Get to your local comic book shop, get to your local bookstore, go pick it up. It's definitely worth the read. Mm-hmm. Now, Pat, you're kind of waving. You got some breaking news here?
Yeah, breaking news that has got my jaw slightly on the floor. Nintendo, as we record, just got done doing their direct live stream, which is something they do. I'm not quite sure how frequently they do it, because I have really, honestly, I'm not going to lie, I haven't owned a Nintendo system since like the Game Boy Advance SP years ago, but I keep my eye on them. I'm a video game fan. Usually these Nintendo Directs, they're either hit or miss. You either get something announced that people go bonkers for, they're kind of like, meh. This one is setting the internet on fire, because it has been announced by Nintendo that coming this year, and once I get done with this, if you don't own a Nintendo and you are a Legend of Zelda fan, you're probably going to run out and buy one. Coming this year, a remake for The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is coming out for the Nintendo Switch. Of course, the classic Nintendo game, Game Boy game, which came out in 1993, tells the story of Link getting stranded on Koholint Island, a bizarre place full of weird characters, strange monsters, and Goombas for some reason. There's a trailer on Nintendo's YouTube page where, I'm looking at Twitter right now. Twitter is just going absolutely bonkers, and deservedly so, because this was kind of out of left field. Nobody saw this coming.
Pat, you're the video game aficionado of the panel, so I am going with you on this, because Zelda and Link, or you want to talk about iconic characters, dare I say, are they right below Mario and Luigi?
Yeah, it's kind of depends on who you talk to, who you place one over the other. Obviously, Mario is very iconic and very classic. If I'm not mistaken, when the Olympics show up in Tokyo next year in 2020, he'll be one of the featured, mascots or whatever it is, for the games, because Mario is so synonymous with Japan and Tokyo and everything else. But yeah, Zelda's right there with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. I'm looking at the Twitter feed right now as we're recording, and holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
People are losing their mind.
They say people were already excited when they announced, Mario Maker 2, which if you haven't played that, I've played a little bit of it. It's a fun game where you essentially get to create your own Mario level and upload it to where the internet can play it. And I played some of your levels out there, internet. You're real, you-know-whats. You're real hard sometimes.
Pat is not holding back any punches, folks. He's beat Kingdom Hearts. He's ready for the next challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we got for this week on this edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. So for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.